Hi, everybody. I would like to give you the notes for anatomy and physiology for anatomical positions and an introduction. This is the set of notes, and I'm going to go through it very slowly today. And the reason why is because there's a certain way that I'm going to ask that you do notes. It is called like the Avid way or the Cornell way. And I know recently they kind of went away from this, but I am still very comfortable with the components. So if you don't like the way it is positioned, let's talk. You can use a Zoom link that I have and talk about it during office hours. I do have office hours every Wednesday from 9 to 11 or at a different time that works for both of us. So this is the title of the notes. So somewhere on your paper, you're going to want to write anatomy and physiology. Taking a look at this skeleton here, looks like he's got something wrong with his foot. I say him, but it could be a her. There are some ways to identify a skeleton, and we will be getting into that during this course. The essential question for this is, I will learn basic vocabulary of anatomy and physiology. So underneath that, you need to be writing your essential question. If you are using Avid or Cornell notes, you know that there's a space for it. If you're writing on regular paper, please write it underneath your title of anatomy and physiology, okay? Please feel free also that if I am going too fast with this, that you stop this video and then you start it up when you are ready and done actually writing it out, okay? Now, questions have come up. Can I just type it in? I am struggling personally with people typing it, and the reason why is because when you move your body, you have to move it in a certain way and use your brain. So if you're going to actually write the letter E and the letter S and the letter S again, that is going to help you remember much better than finding the E on the Quartry board as well as the SS and then just putting it in there. So writing is essential. I am working on figuring out how to upload the pictures into Schoology so that I can actually see your work and give you credit for it. All right, I'm moving on. If you're still not done with this, please feel free to stop it, and when you're ready, continue on with the video. All right, so I put it right over here at the very, very top of the topic, and when it's, I will learn the basic vocabulary of anatomy and physiology. And this is one way of doing Cornell notes or Avid notes. There are little variances. Again, if you struggle knowing where to, struggle with where things are, please let me know. And at the very end, I will give you the Zoom link, or you can actually go onto the syllabus and put on the Zoom link. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to split the paper up and kind of into thirds. So 1/3 over here is going to be left blank, or you can keep your lines. And then 2/3 is right here. Right here is where you're going to put your set of notes, okay? And then afterwards, we need to either put a line or a separations because each slide has its own notes. And each slide then, ladies and gentlemen, is going to require a question. So let's get started. Definitions first of all. Well, if we take a look at these two words, those are the words that are in your schedule, and this is the class that you took. You took anatomy and physiology. Some people might be like, anatomy and physiology, what is that? Well, this is what it is. Anatomy means basically cutting up. And here is a very, very old picture because back in the days of old, many people didn't really know about the human body as much as we know now. And so one of the first things that people did was take a look at what's inside. And if you take a look in this picture, again, some of the things that are definitely have changed throughout the years. You see, first of all, that people don't really get dressed up now when they're in class. You see all men in this picture. That isn't the case now. And usually people that were looking into this and were schooled had a higher level of income than others. So that is not the case of what it is now, but people are still curious and want to know what's inside. So anatomy means basically cutting up. So taking a look at what's inside. Physiology, on the other hand, that is taking a look at the parts and saying, hey, how do these things work together? How does that work? What does this thing do? And then finding out later on it's part of the liver. What does the liver do? What is its function? Does it work with any other parts of the human body? So your notes should be on the right side. I am going to move on. Of course, if you're not done writing, you stop this, and then when you're ready, you start it up again. All right. So if this is where you wrote it all, anatomy means cutting up, physiology, study of the function of living organisms and their parts, you have to put a question to this set of notes. Actually, every slide will need a question. Now, this is where it becomes creative, and it's your opportunity to write any question you want. What is anatomy? What does cutting up mean? What is physiology? What means putting together or finding out what the parts do? So that is physiology. Anatomy, cutting up. So any one of those questions will work. So I put the question of what is anatomy here. So these are my notes. Anatomy means cutting up, physiology, studying, and I make sure that I put the question to the left of it. I don't put it above, I don't put it below, I put it right there so that I have a question and the answers are over to the right, okay? Now, again, stop if you need to, that's fine. And when you're ready to go on, you can press the play button again. And after you write this, I need you to put a line or keep some type of big space for the next slide of notes. So I'm going to go on to the next slide here. Don't forget, your notes are now going to go onto this side and underneath that set of notes that you did. All right. Body positions. What are the body positions? Let me move this up a bit. Body positions basically say how the human body is posed. And in this case, anatomical position means basically you're going to stand straight forward. Your toes are going to be pointed forward, not over to the sides. Some people in dance may know of position 1, position 2. In this case, your toes are going to be pointed forward and your palms face forward as well. So your thumb, if you lifted it up, would get into your ear. So that is an anatomical position. We always talk about the human body, and when we do, we will talk about it envisioning this picture, okay? Now again, if you haven't done and written this down over to the right, stop it when you're done, ready to play, and then continue to press play. Once you're done with that, remember you have your new set of notes and your question will go down over on the left. For this slide, what is anatomical position would work, or where are your palms in anatomical position, where are your feet in anatomical position, what is anatomical position, what does anatomical position allow you to do, anything like that is going to be there. So we need a question, and then you need to create a space down below. All right, again, if you haven't finished, feel free to stop this video and start when needed. Okay, sorry, notes are going to go here again. Make sure you have a line or a space. And we got a picture of Da Vinci's picture because artists really needed to know about the human body because they were drawing the human body. So Da Vinci was a person who was really involved in anatomy and knowing how the body looks and how it functions. So Da Vinci knew how to draw it correctly. So anatomical directions, I'm going to give you 12. And what those are going to be words that are opposite of each other, in which they help us understand what part and what section of the body we are talking about. For instance, think of a child who says, my tummy hurts. And we don't exactly know in the tummy where it hurts. There's lots of different areas of the tummy. So if we can use these anatomical positions that I'm going to tell you about, we will be able to get very specific in them. So don't forget, this goes on the right side, and then you put a question on the left side. A question for this one would be, what is anatomical directions? Why are anatomical directions important? What's the role of anatomical directions? Anything. Again, if you're not done, feel free to stop this video and start when needed. Okay, don't forget your question goes over to the left, and any one of those questions would work. All right, 12 to know. Please notice that we have got 4 words, and 2 words are in pink, 2 words are in green. The 2 words in pink are opposites of each other, okay? Yin and yang, front, back. In fact, that's what this first 2 words are. Ventral and dorsal mean the opposite of each other. Ventral means towards the tummy area or towards the front. Dorsal is in the back. If you know anything about fish, or if you like that Shark Week stuff, dorsal means towards the back, and a dorsal fin on a shark is on the back. Okay? So, if a little girl says, or a child comes in and says, my tummy hurts, well, you're going to say, okay, that's on the ventral side of the body. Okay? If somebody comes in and says, oh, my back hurts so bad, you're going to say, well, that's on the dorsal side. We don't usually say front, back. We are going to use medical terminology. And you might even be taking medical terminology this fall or next spring. And that is going to be a whole nother world. Think about it as a whole new vocabulary for yourself, okay? Medial and lateral. I only know about the word lateral because I own a house and I have a basement in my house, and there are these things called laterals in my basement, and that is where water collects and gets transferred and then to a sump pump and pumps it out. But you may not know lateral, so let's get to the word medial. Medial, middle. Medial means towards the middle. Lateral means towards the side. So the child comes in and says, my tummy hurts. And you're going to ask where the pain is. And they're going to say that the pain is by the belly button. You can now say that it is medial in the abdominal area. Okay? The pain is medial in the abdominal area. If it was more over towards the hip bone, you might say, well, that is lateral. So the pain is more lateral in the abdominal area. Now, if you haven't finished these, don't worry about it. Stop and you can start up again. I'm going to flip it over, and now you have to have a question to the left. Now you have a variety here. What does ventral mean? What does dorsal mean? What does medial mean? What does lateral mean? Any one of those are going to work for you. You could also write what means away from the midline of the body, what means towards the middle of the body, what means towards the front, what means towards the back. Any one of those questions work. It doesn't matter which question you use, just so that you have a question there. All right, I'm moving on. Next ones. Here's another 2 sets, proximal and distal. Proximal and distal basically means and deals with your appendages. So your arms and your legs are your appendages. So what we have then is proximal and distal, meaning closest to. Your thumb is more distance or has more distance towards the torso or the trunk of the body. Distal. I apologize. And proximal means it's closer to the trunk, or we call it the torso of the body. So if we wanted to say the elbow is more proximal to the torso than is the thumb, or we could say the thumb is more distal than the elbow. Same thing with your legs. The knee is more proximal than the ankle. The ankle is more distal to the torso of the body. Superior and inferior, well, they work just opposite of each other as well. Superior meaning towards the top, inferior meaning towards the bottom. So if the child was pointing in the abdominal area up by the rib area, you would say medial the pain is medial in the abdominal area, superior to the belly button. So that is where you could start describing it. I'm moving on. If you're not done, stop the video. When you're done, you can. Now again, you're going to need a question for this. So what kind of question can you put here? How about what is superior? Superior means what? What means above? And you can do that for any one of those. All right, moving on. Anterior, posterior, same as ventral and dorsal. Anterior and posterior mean front and back. I know, why would they do that? Sometimes we are going to say the word ventral if we're going to be talking about something that is deep inside the body. So we can say, is it more towards the front or more towards the back? Anterior, same thing. Anterior is the front, same as ventral. Posterior towards the back, same as dorsal. Superficial and deep, now that is going to entail things, for instance, a cut, a stab wound, a bullet that hit the person. We would need to know if it is superficial or on the surface, or is it deep within. For instance, a paper cut for me may be considered superficial, but if I was chopping up onions and I cut my finger and it would not stop bleeding, that would be a deep cut, and I may have to go in for stitches for that. Okay. Question for this again. What is superficial? What is deep? What means towards the surface? What means farther down? What means in front of? What does the anterior mean? What is the opposite of anterior? Any one of those will work. All right, I'm skipping over to the next one. Now, this is going to be, for instance, in how a patient is positioned. And for instance, if the child has some tummy issues, you may want to put them in supine position, or you can say patient was laid in supine position, and they may want to kind of press on that abdominal area and press on others to see if other areas hurt. So this means basically how you're going to lay the patient down, facing up or facing down. Facing up is supine, facing down is prone. Again, question for this one would be, what is supine mean? What does facing up mean? What does facing down mean? Any one of those work. All right, moving on. Different ways to actually cut the body. Now, let's say the child needs some type of surgery. If the child needs surgery and it is going to be a horizontal cut, meaning splitting the body up in the front to the back, so that would mean basically, let's see, what's the best word to say? Let's say you were going to cut from the belly button over to the hip bone. That would be what was called a transverse one or horizontal one, and that basically splits the body up from the top and the bottom. If you were going to do one that splits up the right side of the body to the left side of the body, we call that sagittal. And if you were going to do a cut from the front of the body to the back of the body, that would be a frontal cut. So with this being done, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of your notes, students. What I'm going to ask you to do now is write 5 summary sentences. Now you're going to say, what are summary sentences? Well, I'll tell you what they are. Today I copied down notes in anatomy. Today I learned what anatomy is. There were 6 slides to today's question, or to today's notes. Those don't work. What I do want you to do is reiterate the notes. So for instance, anatomy means cutting up. Anterior means towards the front. Distal means farther away from the trunk of the body. Those are what we are asking for. So with that, everybody, this is the set of notes. Have a good day.